Now, hello everybody. Welcome to today's session. Today, who have we got on? Hi Maureen. Hi Quiva. Hi Anne-Marie. Hi Mihaela. So we're going to talk about what is a unified yoga system. And where do I start? I've been thinking about this all day long. Let's say that there's only one system of yoga, and then within that one system of yoga, every aspect of yoga is covered in it. It encompasses all of yoga, and then within that, as people focus on different aspects of the system and they develop those, is then that becomes a style. So people develop their own style, and a style is a part of the system, and it's a part of the system that they emphasize. So you'll see there's lots of different styles of yoga, emphasizing different aspects of this system of yoga. So a couple of questions I have is, if you took all the styles of yoga and you put them together like a jigsaw, where do they all fit? They all have their place. So how do you fit them all together? So that's one part of the conversation I want to have. Another part is, for a beginner, beginners always ask, where do I start? And if a beginner goes to a particular style of yoga, they'll say, well, start here. So if it's a vinyasa, a flow style, is when you start at beginners. If it's an Iyengar style, well, you'll start again at beginners and be about alignment. So, but hi Colin, where does a beginner start if they were to focus on the system of yoga rather than a style of yoga? So that's a question I want to tease out. Another thing I'd like to tease out is it's something that people struggle with is getting a sense of the overview of yoga. There's so many different styles, there's so many different aspects to it. Is trying to get a sense of it all and how it all fits together. It can be very challenging for people. So I'll give an overview of the system as I go along, and people can get a sense of, okay, I get the overview, and then they can recognize the parts that they recognize more and that they fit into easier. A simple example. One of the most popular styles of yoga is vinyasa, a flow style, because it keeps people moving and it keeps the mind busy. And as you focus, it calms the mind, it gets into the body, gets the energy going. It's a lovely way to get into the experience of a person's body. So a lot of people will relate to that. They go, oh yes, I get that, I get that. Or you start talking about the breath, and they go, oh, I get that, or the philosophy. So we'll talk about the overview of the system, and people can start to get a sense of it, and then where they fit into it in some places easier than others. Another part of the conversation I'd like to tease out, the beginner, where does the beginner start in the system, the overview of the system, is another part of the conversation is, if somebody is going to commit to their yoga practice and they get the yoga bug and they go, oh, I love yoga. It's wonderful. The effect is just wonderful. It's brilliant for them. And they commit to teasing it out more. If you think about the ultimate commitment with your yoga is to do it all your life, is to go further into that, is not just to do it all your life, is to go as far into it as you can. So if somebody's going to go as far into it as they can, is then they would be looking to understand the system of yoga, the overview to all of it, how it all fits together, and then they start to develop and tease that out as they go along, so that it becomes a truly lifelong practice. And one of the reasons why I want to have that conversation is people can get stuck in ruts, so that they find yoga, they come to yoga, lot of people just turn up to a class. They don't really know too much about it. They turn up and they find they love it. It really works for them. And a lot of people will continue to go to that class or that style of yoga, and they'll love it. And then they'll keep doing it. And then if it gets a little bit stagnant, is their yoga gets a little bit stagnant because they're just staying in that one aspect of it, or that one focus of it. Where if you're going to have a lifelong experience, is you want to begin to look at the other aspects of it. So you get people moving around different classes, trying out different things, which is great. It's a wonderful thing when people do that. However, there is a challenge with it. And you'll see this in generally yoga centers. You'll see it even on teacher training courses. Is you'll have somebody who's very good at the postures, and you'll have somebody else who's very good at the meditation, or somebody who's very good at the philosophy, or the subtle practice. Is people have a tendency to focus on one thing and become really well in that within the system of yoga, and then they'll have interests in other parts, but they're not necessarily fully well-rounded. So you get a lot of teachers who are very good at postures, but don't really pay too much attention to the breathing, or they don't really go into the meditation or into the subtle aspects of the philosophy or chakras. Where somebody else loves the chakras, they're right in that, but their posture work they don't really pay too much attention to. And it all fits together. So my point is that you'll have, and this is where it gets confusing for people, you'll have one teacher say, this is the way, this is yoga, this is what works. Another teacher will go, this is the way, this is what works. And it can get very confusing for the students and the practitioners, going, well, which is it? One teacher has told me this and another teacher has told me that, and they conflict each other. I don't know which it is. A simple example is, if you go to a teacher who teaches alignment, is they'll tell you to follow the alignment of your body. And we can get into what that is. Follow the alignment of your body, and then follow that into the posture. So you stay within how your body moves in its alignment and the anatomy of movement. And then you're working that into the posture. Another teacher might tell you is stay in the posture and your body will find the posture. So basically what they're saying is that your body will take the shape of the posture. And your body might take the shape of the posture, but doesn't necessarily mean that it's actually working within its alignment. So if somebody's told those two things, is they contradict each other. And it creates confusion in the students practice. They don't know which one is which. So this is where the different approaches or the different styles can cross over each other rather than being integrated. This is how this style layers into that style. And a simple example, I'll relate to what I just said. Alignment is I'll say this. I have a lot of things I could say. So let me say it this way. I'm gonna start with this. Is where does a beginner begin? And where does a beginner begin with the system of yoga rather than a style of yoga? And as I explain that, I layer in how the different styles work together, and that will show how the different styles layer in, and it can ease out some of the contradictions that people might hear. So a beginner works from the outside in. So they turn up, they're going to do a yoga class, they're going to start to do postures, they have to work from the outside in with their body. So you start with the classical posture. So here's a posture, basic guideline. So you're talking through the basic posture. But on top of that, or very with it, is you want to teach the person alignment, is you need to teach the person how their body moves as one integrated system, that the body is unified in its movement. So you want people to work from their center. As you lift up through, you root down and you rise up. You get that beautiful lift, the root and rise, the yield. So the body and spine is extending. And then you're going into the postures and you're going over to your flexibility. So you got your stability, you got your mobility, and then you have your flexibility. Now within that it's all the different adjustments of the body that create that. So if you look at all the joints in the body, all the joints in the body are an expression of a circle. So what you want to do is learn how all the joints move and then how all the joints move together. A simple example is if I press my hands on the floor, I gently rotate the soft part of the elbow out, and that puts a little rotation on my ball and socket joint. And when I press in, it creates a line of force. As I press down through my hand, I get a tone coming up my arm, into my rib cage, and then into my core. So that as I follow my alignment, I'm activating my line of force to my core. And then each limb has a line of force, the legs all the way to the spine. So you're looking to activate your alignment and then move in the anatomy of your alignment, how your body moves in alignment. And basically it's expressions of a circle to create lines of force. I'm keeping it simple. A lot of people will recognize when you talk about alignment is a lot of people recognize Iyengar style, because Iyengar style heavily focuses on alignment and the anatomy of movement. And they're excellent at it. It's brilliant. It's a really good style, really grounding style. So a beginner needs to start from the outside in, so they're going to work on alignment and their anatomy of movement. And they're layering that then into the postures. And very simply, a simple way to put it is it's the body first. Hi, Tatiana. It's the body first, is the posture second. So get your body right and you get the posture right. If you try to get the posture right without your body, well, then your body isn't going to work too well in it. So you want to get your alignment. So anyway, that's alignment, and you could describe that as the Iyengar style. So you're developing that. There's two things I want to say now. I'll ask it as a question. What's the difference between an advanced posture and an advanced practice? So an advanced posture is you start off with simple postures that your body can do. And then you start to do more complex postures, whether it's challenging your strength, whether it's challenging your mobility, your ability to open the body, or whether it's challenging your flexibility. Is the more complex it becomes, it's the more advanced posture. So you start off with simple postures and you build up and you layer into more and more advanced postures. So that's advanced postures. A lot of people confuse that with advanced practice. And advanced practice is when you begin to layer in all the other aspects of yoga into your physical practice. So you're layering in alignment, then you're layering in the breath and the locks and the mindfulness. You're layering in the subtle energies, you're layering in the meditation, the mindfulness comes in. There's lots of things that you layer into that for it to become an advanced practice. So a lot of people get confused in this, where when they start to do their yoga practice is they chase the advanced posture, but the advanced practice gets left behind. And what can happen there is that people start to sacrifice their alignment to get as far into the posture as they can. So in that is they make three common mistakes. First is lack of awareness, is they don't know what they're doing. Generally people aren't aware of their alignment when they're doing this. Yeah, they might have started doing vinyasa style and it doesn't focus so much on alignment. So it's about flow in the posture. So they're not sure about alignment, or they're not aware of it. Is as they overstrain their mobility, is they're straining the ligaments and the muscles. If they keep overstretching, they're going to end up compressing the joints. So three common mistakes are lack of awareness, is overstretching of the muscles and the straining of the joints, And then if you go further, there's compressing in the joint itself. So it's called end gaming. So people have a tendency to focus on advanced postures, and then they're chasing the end game. They're trying to get as far into the posture as possible. And it's a bugbear for a lot of people in the yoga world, because it's popular. It's very popular for people to do that, but it's missing the point of advanced practice over advanced postures. And that isn't doing a posture, just making a shape and throwing yourself into it, and compressing the joints. It's not even an advanced posture. It's making a shape and a person is forcing themselves into it. It's not actually advanced postures, because if it was advanced posture, a person would have to do it within the limits of their alignment, the ability to stay grounded, stay rooted. As they lift up through their body, it gives them their mobility, and then they're going over in their flexibility. And all those three together is the person's adaptability, and that they're holding the strength of that. Is if you can do a posture and you can hold those three aspects and you go to your limit, that's the limit of your practice at the moment. That's what you're working on. You find your edge, and then you're challenging all three. It gets more stronger and intense, but you're holding it until it becomes easier. You soften into it, and then you send your edge out a little further, and you're developing your postures and developing your body into advanced postures. But it's with alignment. You're doing it within the well-being and balance of your body. That's doing advanced postures that way is advanced posture practice. When a person just throws themselves into postures, forget about any form of alignment, it's just making the shape. That's not even doing advanced posture practice. That's just throwing yourself into shapes. Is just the truth of it. And I know a lot of people won't like me saying that, because it seems like it's a judgment on them or a criticism. I don't mean it to be, but there's no way around just being honest and truthful about it. That's what it is. So if a person wants to develop their practice and maintain it over an extended period of time, so keep their practice going over a very, very long time, very, very long time, is pulling back from compression is a really smart thing to do. Is not overstraining and stressing the muscles and joints and the ligaments is a very good thing to do. So if you think about it, is if a person commits to a lifelong yoga practice, is they're really committing to the marathon of the practice rather than the sprint. So the end gaming is like a sprint, where the marathon is you're training for the long term. And smart marathon runners, they hold their powder, so to speak, until the day of the race. So when they're doing their training, is they'll train lightly and they'll do a lot of light practices, and then they'll push themselves on certain days, but they'll never throw themselves into it. On the day of the marathon, is they'll put everything they can into it, but they're building up to that point. Is exhausting themselves or burning themselves out before that, it's self-defeating when it comes to marathon day. So it's running the marathon of the practice rather than the sprint. And again, sometimes people learn the hard way, where they cause themselves injuries or they hurt themselves in their practice, and it limits what they can do. Somebody strains their back or strains a muscle or a ligament, and they can't do what they were normally doing. If they love their yoga enough, is they'll keep doing yoga, but they'll have to adapt. They'll have to adapt. So what they're going to have to do is they can't stretch as far, so they won't overstretch as far. Is they'll have to pull back to a point where they ground themselves, and then they're going to have to open up more space, and then they're going to have to go and test their edge again. So if somebody sticks at it, sometimes it takes a couple of injuries before they go, I really got to figure this stuff out. I love my yoga, I love what I'm doing, but sometimes I just go a bit too far, and then I can't practice for a week or two. So generally, sometimes that's the path some people take, but that's just the way of it. So Iyengar, person starting from the outside in. The longer the person does the practice and they're refining their alignment and their anatomy and movement, is you want to work into your body because you're starting from the outside in, but you want to begin to work into your body. So as you become aware of your body awareness and how your body works, is you need to go deeper in. So you need to layer in your breath. So you want to activate your breath, and then you want to begin to activate your core. And to activate your core, you're activating the three main muscle locks in the body. So there's the throat, there's the abdominal lock, and then the perineum lock under the base of the pelvis. So you want to work in your alignment and then begin to breed your alignment to activate your core and engage your locks. So what is a nice simple way to describe it is you're shifting your control of your center from your physical effort to your energetic effort. Everybody get that? So rather than constantly thinking about what your physical body is doing, is the more you layer your breath into it, you're feeling your body through your breath, and you're channeling the energy into your body, and you're controlling the energy that flows in rather than constantly having to try and control every muscle in your body. You're breathing your balance. You're breathing the root. You're breathing your yield. You're breathing your flexibility. You're breathing and you're staying adaptable, opening up your inner space and keeping it open. And then moving in at a more subtle level into the energetics of the practice. Moving into the energetic, activating the energetic body. So where does this fit in this system of yoga, and what style of yoga mostly or closely represents the breath and the locks? And that will be Ashtanga. Ashtanga yoga, they have three series of sequences of postures, and they very much focus on the Ujjayi breath, and then they activate the three locks in the body. So they want to control the body by controlling the breath and controlling the locks. Okay, so now how do I explain this? I'll explain it this way: I'll talk through breath awareness. I'll talk it into the Ujjayi breath, and then I'll talk it into the locks, and then I'll talk it into the alignment of the body. So you can see how alignment and the anatomy and movement, when you layer the breath in and activate the inner locks of the body, is they actually are the same practice. It's just one is more physical on the outside, and then the other is moving in is more energetic, working on the inside. And we're moving in closer and closer and refining our center. So you have an exhale, you have an inhale, and then in between the inhale and the exhale, you have a moment of pause, like a pendulum. The breath moves like a pendulum, and the breath doesn't stop at the end. It's just a moment of pause, and then it changes direction, and you breathe in, change the direction, you breathe out, and it moves like a pendulum. So inhaling, exhaling, pause, exhaling, pause, inhaling, pause, exhaling, pause. And that's the way it works. Now, we talked about rooting down into the body, resisting physically into the ground with the body to create that lift up through. Now, when you exhale through your breath, that's the same exhale of rooting. You exhale down and you come to the pause at the end of your exhale, and you're exhaling into the root of your physical body, but you're also exhaling into the root of your energetic body. So that's the exhale coming down. The inhale is the coming up. I'm resisting, I get this rebound effect that gives me a lift and a tone through my muscles. That inhale, I'm now catching that wave of lift and I'm rising it up. I'm lifting it up through my body. I'm raising my energy and I'm extending my joints and opening up my spine. So I'm creating the space, opening the space in my body. Now I'm opening up the inner space energetically. So between the exhale and the inhale, that's giving me that beautiful root and rise. stability, and then mobility. Now, the pause at the end of the exhale and the pause at the end of the inhale that's when you're able to keep the space open. So as you come into the pause, you get a beautiful grounding, and then the space opens up. As you get the rise and the inhale, when you come to the pause at the peak of the inhale, again, you get that beautiful opening. And that opening is the opening of flexibility. You're opening up the edges of your inner space, your energetic space. So as you move in your body, you have your anatomy of movement, how your body moves in alignment, but then equally, every movement matches your breath. A simple example, if we did a joint release, exhale, inhale. It's a natural movement. Exhale, inhale. Now, if you went through your whole body and you just look, you were looking at your hands and you tried to make your hands, you were looking at your hands and you were breathing, and your hands look like they're breathing too. So when you exhale, you inhale. Wrist. This is an inhale. This is an exhale. Now I'm opening my mouth so you can hear my breath. So each movement, exhaling, inhaling, every movement in your body is an expression of your breath. So as you move in your alignment, you're also moving your breath in alignment with how your body moves. And the more you refine that, is you're syncing up every movement with your breath. And that's you layering your physical effort into your energetic effort. Now that's going to take you deeper. It's going to take you deeper into your body. It's going to take you deeper into your breath. And what you're looking to do is open the channel more and activate the locks that hold the channel open. What do you mean by that, Roy? You flare your nostrils. Imagine you're smelling a flower. Now, as you smell the flower, the nostrils open, but keep them open. And as you sit straight and tall, the breath just flows more freely into your lungs. So I'm gonna talk through it, and rather than trying to take you through the practice, I have a lot to say. So the full yogic breath is breathing into your lower lungs, in your navel. They stop at the base of the rib cage, but it pushes down on your diaphragm and your inner organ. So your belly expands. You're breathing into your rib cage. You're breathing into your upper chest. It's the three phases of your breath. They come together for the full yogic breath. So now you're opening up your breath more. And with Ashtanga, they want to activate the Ujjayi. So the Ujjayi breath is another word for it is called the victorious breath. And what it is that it's your second wind. So think about all the times when you're starting to work out, or you're starting to run, you're doing something, and your normal way of breathing, after a while, it isn't enough, and you start to feel like you're running out of breath, and you huff and puff for a little bit, and then what happens is that your second wind kicks in. Your body drops into a different type of breathing naturally. So your nostrils flare open, your epiglottis in your throat tones. So you get this tone in your throat, and you start to breathe much deeper into your lungs. So you're using the full capacity of your lungs. And what is the power breath? You're moving in the power of your breath. You've opened the channel more. You're getting more breath in. That's the Ujjayi. Without going into trying to take you through the practice, because it takes too long. Another day we'll go through the practice. So you're activating the Ujjayi, and now you're opening up the channel. Now what you want to do now is you want to begin to, and you've activated your throat look. You want to begin to activate your core. You want to activate your core and have all your work come from your core. Because remember I talked about lines of force. So you're resisting with the hand. That creates a tone all the way through to your core. The same with your legs, both arms. And then the fifth line of force is your spine itself. You want to coalesce all that effort in your navel, activating your core. So how do you do that? You're doing your full yogic breath. You begin to do your Ujjayi, And then what you do is you slow your exhale down. And as you slow your exhale down, you start to come into the pause at the end of the exhale. Now, as you come to the pause at the end of the exhale, nice and slow, you're coming to it. What's happening is the whole trunk of your body is drawing in. Then people often think that your navel is drawn back to your spine. It is, but it's not just the navel. It's all around. So the whole trunk of your body is drawn back to the spine. So every muscle in the trunk is tightening around that core point. And what that's doing is going to activate your core. Now, you activate your core using your breath. You do not pull your belly in. If you're pulling your belly in, that's a squeeze. You're tensing. You're not. It's like a throat. You're toning it open. You're not clenching it. So when you exhale and you come to the pause at the end of your exhale, what's happening is your navel and the trunk is all drawn together. At one point, you'll feel that the trunk of your body comes together and begins to work as one. Is you've activated your core, but you've activated your core using your breath. So you're activating the power of your core, the energy of your core. It's not just a physical practice, it's an energetic practice. So now you've activated your core, and as you begin to breathe your core and move from there, is now you're starting to move in your alignment, but you're also moving in your energetic alignment, and you're starting to work from the inside out. So you're using your throat, you're using your abdominals, and then the third one is the perineum underneath. Without getting into too much detail, the perineum muscle is like a cone shape. It's what keeps all your internal organs up. Your abdominal wall keeps them in, and then your throat stabilizes your neck. So you're creating a clear channel that keeps the inner integrity of your muscles and your joints, holds them all together. So perineum comes up, abdominal wall comes in, and the throat stabilizes. So when you work those three muscle groups, you're holding the integral center energetically within yourself. So you've got your muscles, your joints, your bones, and they've got your breath, and you're working your energetic center. So that's I know I'm saying a lot. You don't have to remember it all. But the point I'm making is you're layering your alignment, Ashtanga style, or Iyengar style, and then you're layering it into your breath, activating the full yogic breath and the Ujjayi breath and the locks, activating your core. So now you're layering in the Ashtanga practice. So now you've got Iyengar and you've got Ashtanga working together, and you're working at a physical level and an energetic level. The difficulty can happen where if somebody goes and does a yoga practice, a yoga style, where the emphasis isn't on alignment, it's very hard to activate the locks if a person is overstretching. If I'm in a posture and I'm end gaming, so I'm losing my ground, my muscles are all and ligaments are all bunched up, my joints are pressing bone on bone, I don't have a clear channel to breathe. My locks in my body is they don't have an opportunity to actually tone open. Everything becomes clenched and bunched in. So it's very difficult for me to work the true alignment of my breath and my locks if I'm actually not working in the alignment of my body. So that's the problem. If you get too caught up in one style but not become more well-rounded, is after a while the person's going to think, all I'm doing is injuring myself here, or I'm not getting any further, or even worse, is they're throwing themselves into things and then they think I'm doing this advanced practice because I'm making these crazy shapes, and they're just wearing their joints away. That's even worse. It's even worse. It's not such a good thing. So alignment is really important. But then if you practice alignment, and that's what you emphasize, is after a while you want to shift over. You want to develop your practice that you're moving inwards, that you're shifting over from physical effort to energetic effort. What does that mean? Roy, give me a simple description of what that would be so I could understand. Initially, when people are practicing alignment, it can seem like it's a lot, because you've got to plant your foot, keep the four corners of your feet on the ground. You gotta rotate the ankle to a little if you need to keep it straight. You gotta activate the knee joint so that you're locking out the leg with strength as opposed to hyperextension. You might need to rotate the hip joint. So you got to work the thigh, you got to work the hamstring, you got to work the glutes, you got to work your pelvic floor, you got to work your core. Now you got to keep the pelvis level. Okay, and now you got to get the trunk of your body working, keep your rib cage level. Oh, for God's sake, rotate that shoulder blade back, extend from that armpit. Oh, for God's sake, rotate that soft elbow out, extend through the tips of the fingers. There's so many directions that you could be giving somebody when it comes to alignment. What simplifies all that is when you start to realize that there are forces that work, that spontaneously do all that for you, so that you can resist into the ground. And as you start to lift up through your body, is your body, once you know your alignment, you realize your body starts to lock into its alignment. You start to realize these lines of force that come through, so that as you stay resisting into the ground, you're just keeping a light awareness in your body, making sure that you got that true line of force working through. So you don't have to think as much about all the different aspects of my body's doing this, my body's doing that. Does that make sense? So you're simplifying it. That to simplify it even more is when you begin to breed your alignment, is you're moving into a more intuitive practice so that you can start to feel the lines of force. So you don't have to think about, is my body doing all these things? Is the four corners of your feet planted? Is your hips stabilized? Can you feel the stability of it? Can you breathe into it? And you don't have to think about everything that's going on in your leg, because you can feel the alignment of the energy, and then you can just breathe it. So now you're breathing that line of force, and that's feeding the control of your leg. You don't have to think about it all the time. And you just get into the lines of force. And it's beautiful. You're coming into activating your core. So you start coming to your core power. You really start to move from, a way to describe it is you're shifting from just being physically strong to coming into real energetic power. That's the difference, from strength to power. And that's really important in a practice. But if your focus is on alignment, and then the style that you do never does the ujjayi, or never really focuses on the locks, that's a limitation of a style, so to speak. And I'm mindful here now that I might sound critical. I'm genuinely not trying to be critical, but it's where you can see a lot of the inconsistencies in students, and a lot of people just not understanding, why am I not moving forward in my practice? What am I missing here? And the style that they're practicing isn't giving them the solution. I'm going to go further to develop that more. So you're working from the outside in, you've got stability, your alignment, and then you're working through your breath and your core. And as you refine your center more and more, is you want to work from the inside out. So a beginner works from the outside in, and an advanced practitioner works from the inside out. So as you work from the inside out, it's all about coming into your center and then flowing from it. So it's the flow state. So you want to get into the flow state. So now you're moving in your physical alignment, you're moving in the flow of your breath in your energetic body, and then you're coming into the flow state within it. And a lot of people recognize that as vinyasa. It's a vinyasa style of yoga. So that's a person beginning to work from the inside out, pulling all the different aspects together. But again, it's part of the challenge. If somebody starts a vinyasa class and they love the flow, it's wonderful and it's great. Now here's the challenge with practicing a flow style. For a person to truly get a flow style, they have to understand the flow state. So the flow state, I'll describe it through the breath, is you want to observe your breath. It requires awareness. Then you want to begin to focus on the start of your breath. So you have an inhale, an exhale, and the pauses. The start of the breath, the middle of the breath, the end of the breath. So therefore you have to slow down enough to focus on that. And here's the problem with a lot of flow styles is they're going way too fast, way too fast. And we're going here and we're going there and over here and over there. And what happens is great, because what it does is that it releases a lot of energy. So you're getting into this flow, you're releasing a lot of energy. It's wonderful. That's like woohoo, and you're going and you get to throw yourself into postures, and because you're a bit warm, your ligaments are a bit freer, your joints can move a bit more, your muscles are good to go. You're all in the energy of the flow. But it's not flow. It's not the flow state. A person can be just flowing through shapes as opposed to being in the flow state. Flow state is if you're going to do the flow state, you're really going to have to slow it down and begin to understand the flow state itself. So it's how you begin your breath. It's that easing into your breath. It's that easing into your body. It's that subtle flowing in your body. It's feeling the tone and moving with it. It's feeling the breath and then breathing that subtle flow into your body itself. And you're doing it with awareness, and you want to keep it constant. And at the end of your exhale or inhale, at the end of a movement, you want to be able to slow down and come to the end of that movement where you gently touch off it. There's a moment of pause, and then you're returning out of that movement into the next movement. And that you're breathing the pauses, you're breathing your center, you're breathing your mobility, you're breathing your flexibility. You're just flowing in your inner space, working through your body and your energetic body, and you're doing it from a wonderful place of awareness. You're in the flow state. So the first thing you want to figure out is the flow state. But if that isn't there, well then again, while it's moving and it's flowing, it's flowing through shapes as opposed to being in the flow state. And if you slow it all down, is then you want to flow in alignment. You want to flow in your breath. So really, if you think about if a person really wanted to learn flow and the flow state, you'd almost be moving more like a Tai Chi movement, slow. And you'll see now more and more people are doing like a slow flow, because it brings in that subtle awareness of the breath. And it brings in the anatomy of movement and alignment and how the body all moves together. So that a person stops doing the three common mistakes: overstretching, compressing, lack of awareness. So they're avoiding injuries. And remember, it's not a race, it's a marathon. You're running a marathon here. So that, it take the time to go through the stages and figure them out. Which leads me into another aspect of what does it mean to commit to a lifelong practice? Okay, I'm going to do yoga for the rest of my life. You're not fanatical, but you're like, I'm going to do this. This works so well for me. Is that it's an exponential experience. Is that when I do my bit of yoga and I feel good and calm in myself, exponentially, that makes every other aspect of my life feel better. That's the exponential aspect of it. That's why people go, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life, because when I do my yoga, every other area of my life feels better. So it becomes that central point that the value of it becomes really, really, really strong. Okay, so let's go a little further into that. What does that actually mean? I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. Does it mean that you're going to do what you're doing right now for the rest of your life? Does it mean you'll just do the things you like for the rest of your life? I'll just do the bits I like. Is your yoga always going to facilitate you if you just do what you're doing now in 10 years' time? No is the answer. For most people, there are some people who doggedly it works for, but very few people can do the same thing over and over and over, and 10 years down the road go, well, this still works for me. So, hi, Janet. How are you? Then if you just do the things you like, that'll only get you so far. And what I mean by that is you do what you like, it's great. But there's other things that you will need from your yoga practice that you might not necessarily like, or you might not do them very well. I'll give you a couple of examples. Some people might have tight shoulders, tense shoulders. You know, and you really need to, you're like, oh, I really need to sort them out. I really need to find something that really just hits the spot. And let's say the answer to that is shoulder stands. And because you've got tight shoulders and your shoulder stands, oh, it's restrictive, I don't like it. Oh, I hate that, I just don't like it. You know, and I'm not very good at it. But it just happens to be the thing that will be most effective. And if you just do all the things you like and avoid the shoulder stands, is well, you're avoiding dealing with some part of your body that's actually causing you suffering. It's causing you a bit of hurt, tension, and stress. So doing that thing that you're not very good at or you don't particularly like is at times that's what's required. That's just the truth of it. And if you're not looking for those things, is again, doing what you like will only get you so far. It will not facilitate a lifelong committed practice. And it certainly won't facilitate understanding the system of yoga, like going into it as much as you can. I want to understand as much as I can. So you got to do the things you like that you're good at. It's always a great place to start. Pretty much everybody starts there. But then you also got to be willing to look at the things that you don't do very well, or that you might not even like them. And then you have to learn how to do them well and learn how to like them. Because there's not one aspect of yoga that won't be beneficial for you. You may not recognize it straight away, but your commitment and your understanding that this actually is good for me is that commitment can take you into those spaces that can be a little bit uncomfortable, but yet very rewarding. So that's important. So what you like, also what you don't like, and you're not very good at. And then there's the things that you don't know. There's things that, there's things the yoga's so big, there's things we all don't know. So what are those? What are those things? What's the next thing for me to understand? What's just on the cusp of my consciousness, but it just hasn't come in yet? What's the next thing I need to learn? What is that? So looking for the things that you don't understand or you don't know is also a really big part of being committed to yoga in a lifelong practice, because it keeps you learning. It keeps it new. It keeps it challenging. It encourages you to have a beginner's mind all the time. So no matter how much you understand, no matter how deep you go into your practice, you still have the joy of the beginner's mind. There's things where I go, I understand so much. Here's something new. God, I'm like a beginner in again. Wonderful. It's another opportunity to fall in love with your yoga again. I'm falling in love with my yoga another way. That is just, you just get to keep falling in love with it. And then you can get frustrated with it. And frustration, we can say, oh, we don't like frustration. But frustration, healthy frustration is really good, because it's figuring out that thing that we're committed to figuring out. And when we finally crack it, all that frustration and effort was worth it. And the rewards are enormous. Enormous. A simple example is, I was talking about shifting from physical effort to energetic effort. Is to do that, you're coming into your breath awareness, you're coming into the subtlety of the breath, you're coming into the power of your ujjayi, the victorious breath. Now you're using that to activate your core. Is that type of core strength is wonderful, but it's very empowering too. It gives you a wonderful sense of empowerment in yourself. It's very rewarding, and you'll have it for the rest of your life. Does that mean? Now I know everybody gets older, and the body gets older as it does. The challenge is to maintain our stability. Think about it. When you're 80, 90 years of age, your stability is most important to you. Your mobility, your ability to get around, has everything to do with the quality of your life. Your flexibility, again, it's back to your ability to be adaptable. If you have all those things in your body for longer and longer in your life, the quality of your life is far greater. It affects everything. Now, if you can do that equally at an energetic level, know how to take your stress out, know how to bring your energy up, know how to open your energy out. That's a big thing. That's a big thing. Super as you get older. Okay, so now you've got your Working from the outside in. So you've got Iyengar. As you refine and you move in, you're looking at your breath and the locks. That's Ashtanga. And as you refine your center so that you work from the inside out, that's Vinyasa, the flow state. Like a jigsaw. Remember I said about jigsaw? If you put those three styles together, are far more rounded when you understand all three than the ones individually. And I always say this, I make an arse of it, is it's about the whole is greater than the. I use this all the time, and I always fumble it. The whole is greater than the parts. So each individual part is wonderful in itself. It's a strength in itself. But when you put those three parts together, they're far more powerful. You go much deeper into the experience, your understanding and the wisdom of it. You go deeper in. So it's really important. And if you do it for your whole life, you'll find there's different stages. When I was in my 20s, it was all about the flow and the flexibility. My 30s was much more about my alignment and coming into my lines of force. Where my 40s is very much about the core and the stamina, and activating those more subtle energies of the chakras and things like that, the Kundalini practice. So you can see that as you go through the different life cycles, is different aspects of the practice are more prevalent. Does that make sense? So it's not like, oh, I have to learn all these things now, and look how much I have to learn, and oh my God, it's just way too much. No, you've got lots of life cycles and years and lots of time to do it. If I explain it this simple way, everybody needs their mountain. Everybody needs to find a mountain to climb in their life. And the mountain is a metaphor. And the reason being is life, there's not one person that goes through this life and doesn't find it challenging. There's the highs and lows, the hurts and the pains, the wonderful moments and the wins and the successes and the loves and the joys. Everybody gets the full range of their life. Now you're going to get that regardless. Where if a person finds a mountain to climb, is they can channel all those experiences. All those experiences mean something. Where if we don't have our mountain, you're still going to get all those experiences. But if you're going through them but not having a greater purpose, is all those experiences, again, they're all separate experiences, and there isn't that connection of the story that your story living through them, and the highs and lows and the truths and the learning that you got from it. It can be just sometimes life is good, sometimes it's bad, but okay, but what's the integration of it? Well, there's no real story. And that's when people can feel lost and disconnected, is that they're not understanding or recognizing the story of their life. So if you find a mountain to climb, is that gives a person purpose, and then it gives them meaning. So you can look at a mountain and go, how am I going to do that? And then the simple solution is start taking steps. One step, and the next step, and the next step, and you just keep taking steps. And every step, like a yoga practice, every step is the next little thing that you learned. You get an insight, you learn it, you develop it, you make it your own. Another step, you get another insight, you understand it, you practice it, you learn it, you make it your own. And you just keep taking steps. And after a while, you don't really notice the time, and then you realize you're halfway up the mountain and how far you're into it, and you're refining it and developing it and layering it into your life as you do more and more. And again, you're finding your mountain. So you can have your outward mountain in life where you're choosing your core values that fill out and give your life purpose, everything from relationships and family and careers and hobbies and helping society and the world. That fills out the outer mountain, so to speak. But you also have an inner mountain, is the inner mountain of yourself, and understanding yourself and understanding your relationship to life and where you fit into it and what that means to you, and your own expanding consciousness, your own consciousness growth, if that makes sense. So you've got these three styles. Okay, it's the jigsaw, looking at the system of yoga. Along the way is you're going to come across blocks in your body, energetic, emotional blocks, mental blocks, things that it's like you hit a wall. And the teacher training, it again, it's one of those things where that's where we meet our walls and we look to use our yoga to overcome those walls. And when you have your breakthrough, it's brilliant. And I always say to people on the teacher training course, how many of those breakthroughs do you need to have before you can stand in front of people in a room and say, I'm a yoga teacher, and it works because of your breakthroughs and what it means to you and the effect that has had on you. That's what gives people the confidence to stand in front of people and say, I'm a yoga teacher. It's not the cert, it's not the certificate. The certificate's not that difficult to get. It's having those breakthroughs is what really gives the person the meaning and the purpose as a yoga teacher, because that's what they want to share. They want to share that journey. You want to take people on their mountain and start guiding them through their mountain using the skills of yoga. So initially, you're teaching a posture. After a while, you're not teaching the posture, you're teaching the body. And after a while, you're not teaching the body, you're teaching the breath. And after a while, you're not teaching the breath, you're teaching the person. Does that make sense? So you're taking them through that journey. So then you're going to meet blocks. So how do you untie the knots in the body? You got to learn how to undo knots in the body, and that's a restorative class. Some people would call it a yin yoga, where you spend longer in different parts of the body and just incrementally releasing it out, working in micro movements. And as you work in micro movements or less weight bearing, you're getting into the tone and the ease of opening out the body and then breathing in and breathing in the energetics and releasing out a muscle or releasing out a joint or releasing out some emotional knot in your body, some feeling that you just need to release it. So the restorative class is that ability to activate and get into your subtle energies and begin to release that out. So as part of a well-rounded yoga practice, part of the marathon of yoga is you want to learn how to undo blocks. So a restorative or a yin type of class or style is elementally important to doing that. Now imagine you didn't have that as part of your yoga experience, is you weren't getting into the subtlety of micro movements and how to release blocks in your body. It'd be a big loss. It'd be a big loss that if you didn't have that. If you didn't have that as part of your experience, you might not care if you're just loving the bits you love to do and you found a style and you're in love with it. And that's what happens. People fall in love with it and they fall in love with it's like their first love with yoga, and they do it for as long as it lasts. And then, first loves have a tendency not to last. But when it wanes off, you got to learn how to fall in love with yoga again, another relationship, and fall in yoga again and keep falling in love with it. So at some point is coming into that subtle relationship with yourself and learning how to release becomes an elementally important part of your yoga practice and your life, because the same principles will apply to any given situation in your life. And slowly but surely, as you release all the blocks in yourself, again, more and more of yourself is becoming clearer in yourself. Your core values are becoming clearer. What your life means to you and the purpose of yourself is becoming clearer. It gives you the better ability to find that reflection in life, so that your relationships in life are all directly affected by your ability to actually release like that, to find that subtle release. It's a big part of the maturing of the yoga practice, but also the maturing of a person in life. So you got now Iyengar, you got Ashtanga, you got Vinyasa, and then you got restorative. Now, to put this all together is you want to do it mindfully. So you got to do mindfulness. And a simple way to describe the mindfulness is it's the difference between the what and the how. So when a person first starts going to their yoga class, they're enjoying the class and they're enjoying the what of it. What did you do? I did a flow class. Does that make sense? And they loved it. And they're just in the experience. They're in the what of it. If you ask them, yeah, but how did you do it? They wouldn't be so clear on the how. They just know they did the flow class. And I did this posture and did that posture. But how did you do it? Their answer to that would be limited at the start. This is why an awful lot of people come and do teacher training courses, because they want to learn the how of it. How do I do this? Like I know what I'm doing, but I'm not sure what I'm actually doing in it. How am I actually doing it? So as a person learns about being centered, that's a how. Now they're learning to resist and rise, that there's the root and the rise. That's the how. What do I mean by that? Well, you do that in every posture, and you're doing it, and then you know you're doing it as you're doing it, and you know how you're doing it. And that's mindfulness. You're becoming more and more mindful about your practice. So you're not just in the surface what of it is, or just in the experience of it. You're able to be in the experience and know how you're doing it while you're doing it. And again, that's a big consciousness expansion when a person gets into that space. A lot of times these days, it will be called learning to learn. Is when a person learning is a skill. When a person can learn how to learn, you can apply learning to learn in any direction. It's how a person becomes self-taught in anything. If you learn how to learn, you can teach yourself to learn anything. So learning to learn is very much about being mindful, the how of things. So once you understand how it works, your mindfulness is naturally expanding. It's expanding consciousness. And you want to, move with your alignment, and then you want to flow in your alignment, and then you want to, your alignment, you want to flow in your energetic body in the breath, and then you want to do it in the flow, and then you want to do it mindfully. So your consciousness is flowing in it, and you're in the what of it and the how of it. If you come across blocks, you know how to slow down and ease out those blocks, and that you can let those blocks go. What does that mean? As a development is if you have an ache, and then you learn how to stop struggling with the ache, and then learn how to put the ache down. So you put the hurt down, is your body comes more into connection. You start moving your body as one rather than separate things. So a person can come in and they're all bunched up. They're all out of alignment in their body. Is when you start getting them moving in their alignment, all their body start to incrementally work in unison until all of the body is working from their center, and they're in their center of gravity, and they're flowing through their alignment, and they're doing that, and it's in the stability, the mobility, and the flexibility, and then they're breathing it, and then they're activating their ujjayi, and they're bringing into the power of the locks. Now they're breathing their power. They're shifting from physical effort to energetic effort. Now you bring in a subtle movement, and it all slows down a little bit, and you're bringing in that restorative practice. So what you're doing is that you're releasing the blocks, but the very nature of how you're moving is not letting other blocks build up, is you're releasing as you go. And then you're doing it all mindfully. So you're opening up your physical inner space, and then working from your center, inside out. You're opening up your energetic space, and then you're working from the inside out, flowing from the inside out. You're working up your mental space. We talked about this on Wednesday, grounding into your mind and your awareness. You lift up through it, here's the yield, and then you open your mind, here's the flexibility, and that's the adaptability of your mind, your ability to open up your mental space. What does that mean? Imagine and understand that thing about opening up space. What would happen if you opened up enough energetic space, physical space, for you to feel whatever it is you need to feel in your body, whatever way you need to feel it, and you get to feel it in a way that you let it release. So you're giving yourself all the physical space to release all the suffering and pain in your body, that you're bringing yourself back to vitality, that you're literally in the vitality of your body. At an energetic level, an emotional level, that you open up your energetic space, and that you make it big enough that you can feel whatever it is that you need to feel in the way that you need to feel it. And then you're releasing all the suffering and the hurt, and energetically, again, you're coming into that balance and vitality. At a mental level, you open up enough mental space that you think about whatever it is that you need to think about in the way that you need to think about it so that you can release it. That you're giving your mind and your thoughts the space to work themselves out so that you can let go of the disconnections and hurt and suffering in your mind and come back to that clarity of being. So it's like you're just clearing out and cleansing out the inner space and the channel. Now, what's next? Okay, what's next is you go into the subtle energies, the frequencies within. Let's say you've completely cleared your mind. You've completely cleared your mind. If I was to ask you, you're sitting there and you don't feel that there's no pressure on you at all, internally or externally, you're just sitting there free in your mind, where does your mind go? Where does it naturally go? It naturally goes somewhere. Does that make sense? So you have spontaneous sensations in your body. So equally, you have spontaneous thoughts. Your mind churns up thoughts. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about your awareness itself naturally attunes to certain frequencies. There are certain frequencies that your mind attunes to. Do you understand? Let me refine it a little bit more. And I'll relate this to the chakras, because the chakras layer into the Kundalini practice. So you have those 5 styles that I was talking about. The more you refine those five styles, is you're putting them together. So they all become the one practice. There's only one system of yoga. There's only one practice of yoga. And as you put all those aspects together, that's what really opens you up to the next phase, is getting right into those subtle frequencies within. So when you physically center, you energetically center, you mentally center. What you're doing is you're centering yourself into the present moment. So one of the places that your mind, your awareness is attuned to effortlessly is the present moment. Literally, it's one of the frequencies within us that when we're clearing ourselves, the one thing we are is we become very, very present. Does that make sense? And that present moment is a truth. Why is it a truth? Because it's constant. It doesn't come and go. We may pay attention to what's happening in the moment, and then we may not pay attention to what's happening in the moment. Is whether we're paying attention to the moment or not has no effect on what's happening in the moment itself. The moment is the moment. And every time we attune to the moment, there it is. It's always there. Okay? So this is the root chakra. So each chakra within us has a truth. It holds a personal truth and it holds a universal truth. So how do you start tapping into that? How do you get into the energetics of that? And I'm assuming that everybody has an idea of what the chakras are or has heard about them. So you're working on the muscles and the joints. You're working on the breath, getting into the ujjayi and the locks. You're working on cleansing your mind as well. At the same time is you're extending your spine. So inside is the brain stem. You've got your central nervous system, and out through all of your vertebrae are your nerve threads, and they lead out to your nerve endings. And there's thousands and thousands of nerve endings in your central nervous system. And then there's different parts of your central nervous system that clump together. They come together in nerve plexus. So at a subtle level is those nerve plexus are the chakras. They're energy points in the body. There are points in the body that they attune to the elemental forces in nature, if that makes sense. It's the baseline of reality that we attune to. So your root chakra is down at the base of the spine, the base of the tailbone. And the truth of it is the present moment. So if I asked you, who are you when you're continuously present? That's your personal truth. Who are you when you're continuously present? That's your personal truth. When you're moving in your physical body in your alignment, and then you're moving in your energetic body in your breath, and then you're moving in the clarity of your mind and awareness, is you're free to see the clarity of who you are in the present moment. That source of the source of you. If you think of like a river, the source of a river is where the river comes out of the earth, and that's the source. The present moment is your source. That's where your consciousness reveals itself. Is the purity of your consciousness. So the you that is the present moment is your personal truth. Do you understand? Okay. When you go deeper and deeper into that, is you go into an experience that is greater. So you go from a personal truth to a universal truth. So it's the same, but it's just greater. So, and I'll explain in a moment, is when enough of yourself, your authenticity, people talk about being authentic, is when you can be authentic in the moment, is that's the grounding of your authenticity. You're flowing in that authenticity. And when enough of yourself comes into the moment, is you realize that you're feeling the moment. And at one point you realize that you're not just in the moment, but you are the moment itself. And that's the universal truth. And what's happening is you've broken out of the boundaries, is you go into that boundless state. So I am in the moment when it's I, and when I am the moment, I know I'm saying I, but when I am the moment, I goes, because I go into the boundless state. So it's the moment itself. For the purposes of communicating to you, I'm saying I am the moment. But it's really, the I is gone. You're just in that universal nature of the moment itself. Okay? Now, what type of power does that bring? That's a fascinating question. Let me say it this way. You're physically working your body. It's a physical effort. When you shift over to the energetic effort, now you're not having to constantly think of what your body's doing all the time. You're just in the flow of it. You're feeling the energy of it. Is you're now tapping into a greater flow of energy, but it takes a lot less effort to focus on everything. So the practice becomes more subtle, but the power becomes greater. Now you're just doing it at a mental level. You're not even focusing so much on the breath. You're just moving in consciousness itself. And as you're moving in consciousness itself, is you're flowing in that moment. You're now in that flow state. That's when people are doing sports or just come into the pinnacle of a moment, they talk about the flow state. You're just in that beautiful flow state with full awareness. Okay. So now, how can it get better than that? How can it go even bigger? Is when a person, and this is a direct experience. I know I'm talking about this, and it's great to hear it, but you have to have that direct experience yourself. You need to actually be in this experience to truly understand what I'm talking about. But I'll keep going. Is when you awaken, it's you awakening to the moment. When you go into the universal nature of something, the moment, is that's a realization. So you go from awakening to realization. So you know you're in the moment, but then you realize you're not just in it, you are the moment. Now, when you can feel yourself as the moment itself, that's a universal experience. It's a boundless, it's an infinite experience. So when I relax into that infinite state, I dissolves, and where's the effort? Where is the effort for my experience coming from? Some people would say, well, there's no effort. It's effortless because you're in the moment, and you're that infinite moment is that's all that there is. There is no effort in that. Does everybody understand? So what would happen if you kept relaxing into the moment itself? What powers you along? Where's your power really coming from? Where's your life force really coming from? And how much effort do you really need to put in to being in the moment itself? It becomes effortless because the moment itself is its own power. Do you understand? And it's your home. It's shifting from the doing of an experience to the being of it. And again, it's that grounding. All I'm doing is talking about grounding into the root chakra and coming into the moment. but it's very powerful. People talk about the chakras are keys, and they are keys, and they're keys to the truth, and then the truth holds power. So they're very powerful. And I'm talking about personal inner power within a person. So each chakra has a personal truth and a universal truth. So you want to begin to develop those in your practice. So now is you ground yourself into your body, you ground yourself into your breath, you ground yourself into your mind, and you become present. Now in your yoga practice, you're not practicing the posture. You're not practicing your breath. You're practicing the moment itself. You're practicing the moment itself. And you're just allowing yourself to be spontaneous and free-flowing. You're allowing yourself to be just original in your experience. And that original experience is your authenticity. And that you're refining that authenticity, that becomes your baseline. So what you're doing is you're awakening your root chakra and you're learning to live within that frequency. So that frequency, it is a constant, but now how can you merge into that constant? How can you be that constant itself? Not just in it, but you are that constant. And your identity is shifting from your personal I to your universal. I won't say I, but saying it for the purpose of the language, is personal I to universal I, from your I to your big I, so to speak. So that's the root chakra. How are we doing on time? It's 17 minutes past 7. I don't have long to go. I'm not going to get through all the chakras tonight, but I will. I'll have lots of conversations about describing the truth of each chakra, and then we'll go in and we'll talk about a specific chakra, and then we'll talk up through that one. And I'll explain what I mean now. And I'm going to talk a little bit about Kundalini before we go, just to bring it all together. So the second chakra is the sacral. It's about life force, and your true drive and your power is in your sacral. It's the seat of your will. Yeah. Your third chakra is your solar plexus, and again, that's about your personal power. Very, very about abundance. Where your sacral is very much about law of attraction. This is about abundance. Is your heart? This is about your heart. This is your communication and your wisdom, your throat. Your third eye is your perception, and then your crown is about your freedom. So if you were to think about what would be a successful strategy for life, that if I wanted to learn a strategy that will bring me to my fullest experience in life, what would that strategy be? Well, irregardless of whatever you needed to learn or to do, you'd have to ground yourself into it. You'd have to become present with it, no matter what it is. Then you need to bring it to life. So it's activating your life force, and you're sending your drive into that. You're doing it with will. You're doing it with intention. Then so you're creating an attraction in it. Then you want to bring power to it. What type of power would you want to bring to it? Well, you want to bring abundant power to it. Okay, so after you become abundant in it, what do you need to do after that? Well, you need to hold it in your heart. You need to be able to bond to it. You bond to that thing. And as you bond to that thing, and what do you want to do? You want to learn the wisdom of it. You want to be able to continuously live in the wisdom of it. It's the continual renewal of it. So that your perception of it is no matter where you look, there it is. No matter where you look, there it is. And I'll give you an example, is refining the present moment. You get to a point that you become absolutely clear in your mind's eye about the present moment. No matter where you look, you see the present moment. And you're understanding the wisdom of the present moment. You're living the bond of the present moment. Your present moment is abundant in you. You're living the life force of the present moment. You're rooted into it. So when you bring that all the way up, you are now free in the present moment. You now have free access to the present moment. It doesn't mean you can control anything in the moment. It doesn't mean you can control stuff that's going on in the moment. But what it does, you now have free access to the moment itself, and you are free in that moment. So you can have somebody who's awakened, fully realized, and it's an amazing experience, but they're still human. They're still human. is if they bang their head, it's still going to hurt. They still, as a human, are going to have to deal with that. They make mistakes. Is doesn't matter how awakened and realized somebody is, they're still human in their nature too. So, and that's part of what makes the whole thing beautiful. Is you have the perfection of being, but then it's the imperfection of the doing, it's the imperfection of our humanity is what really brings the wholeness of our experience together. If we didn't have that, we'd be a lot less. We might be perfect, but in our perfection, we're a lot less. It's that imperfection within us that actually brings it all together. So it's as beautiful as anything else. It's learning to understand that and live that is one of the beauties of life, so to speak. But you get the root chakra. So now, if you're going to go into your sacral, your life force, is you would root into your life force. Now, how do you do that? I'm not going to tell you now because I'll end up being here for a bunch of other hours. But you come into your life force. It's not that complicated. A bit to do with your breath, heightening your senses. Think about all the little things you do through the day that give you a little zing. It gives your senses a little bump. Now, what happened in your senses? Well, a bit of life force went through it, a bit of current went through it. Okay, now forget that it's your cup of tea or your cup of coffee that's giving you your little kick. Now sit and feel the little kick without the coffee or the tea. Just feel that all your senses. Like every time I talk about this, I got all these goosebumps in my arms because I'm springing my energy. I'm activating my life force. It just gives me tingles all the time. So when you take hold of your life force for itself, is now what would happen if you just centered yourself in the living experience of your life force itself, rather than the attachments that we attach it to. Does that make sense? It's a great conversation when we have it, yeah. But there's the chakras. Back to the system of yoga, and then the styles of yoga. So now you've got chakra work in on top of that, and that leads to Kundalini practice. So Kundalini practice is when you're taking the primal nature of reality and you're actualizing it. You're bringing it to its universal nature with consciousness. So you as a child, you're instinctually in the present moment. Does that make sense? Now, how powerful is the present moment? How powerful is it? It's there's no way to describe how powerful the moment is when we live in the moment, we are living in cause and effect. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And we're in that, the cause and the effect. There's the moment itself is that there is no start to it and there is no end to it. So there is no cause and effect. There's nothing behind the moment pushing it along. There's nothing outside of the moment pushing it along. There is no cause and effect for the moment itself. The present moment is its own cause. So now when you come into that power, that's that primal power of the moment itself, is when you're activating your Kundalini, is what you're doing is you're activating that primal experience in each chakra, and you're looking to bring that up through each chakra, awaken it. So you want to release the cap. The ground is a cap in each. It's like a cap in each chakra. You sort of have to undo the cork, and then up it comes. And you want to tame the life force. You got to learn how to control your life force. You got to have the power in your core to stay in that while it kicks in. You got to be able to bond to it, but also with the strength of your heart. You need to be completely wise. See the newness of it all the time. Live in the wisdom of it so that you see it. I see you. No matter where I look, I see you. I am now free in this. I now have free access to this primal nature. But what you've done in that is that you have awoken it. You've realized it. Is you've transcended as we pass from this life to the next, or this existence to the next existence, is you transcend. And that's the doorway to heaven, so to speak, is awakening each chakra, is layering the chakras into one. So you're bringing all the seven into the one. And as you do that, is you're preparing yourself for that primal release. Now think about this: is you're centering in a chakra, and that centering is exactly the same as the centering of your feet on the ground, the centering in your breath, the centering in your thoughts, in your awareness. It's exactly the same. It's the same one. It's the same experience. You're just doing that on a more subtle level. Now, this is the challenge with somebody who would go to Kundalini classes. And let's say you're doing all this Kundalini work, you're shaking it up and you're getting it all going and you're releasing the energy. And, you know, different people, everybody, this is another conversation we'll have another day. Everybody has some chakras that they're more attuned to and engaged in than others, just naturally. Do you know somebody who just lives in their heart and you just feel it off them? You just go, that they're just there all the time. That's a person who's really connected into their heart and they're living that, and they identify with that in themselves. That's how it's part of their identity. But yet they could be a very ungrounded person. Their root chakra is not very grounded, but their heart, it's just boundless. They're in the abundance of it. You have another person who is a good talker, is gifted a gab, you know, and just speaks all the time and just seems to say the right thing or know the right thing to say, or they're very good at communication and they can be quite clear in their wisdom. Does that make sense? So different people are different things. You know, somebody who's really grounded, they're just grounded, you know, they just seem to embody the earth. That's a person who's very much in their root. Do you know somebody who is very they've got a constitution like an ox? They're just very vibrant. You know, it's like they could just go and go and go, and they just don't ever seem to get tired. And that'd be somebody who's in their solar plexus. They're in that solar plexus power, and they'll know the benefit of it. They might not necessarily know exactly what it is, but they've got it. But then they might not have great clarity. They might have great power, but yet their perception isn't. They're not that sharp. You know, it's not that they're not intelligent. There's a difference between intelligence and awareness. It's just their awareness may not be switched on very much. They just might not be just switched on. They could be, but they're not, if you know what I mean. So now somebody goes to a Kundalini class and they start doing all these Kundalini practices, and all of a sudden somebody's heart opens up, you know, or somebody's solar plexus or sacral opens up, that a chakra opens up and just energy starts to flow through it and the primal nature starts to come through. But they don't understand centering. They don't understand the ground. They don't have the know-how of how to stay grounded in it. They don't have the micro movements to allow it to release incrementally, because it wasn't brought in. Is they don't understand the power of the subtle breath, of how to release blocks mindfully and incrementally, rather than having to just fire up like the bagpipes, and it can be pretty intense. So you can see how the system of yoga and systematically going into it is elementally important. Is you'll hear people say, oh, there's 100 paths, there's 1,000 paths. Everybody has a path in yoga to their own awakening and enlightenment. Yes, they do. That's the truth of it. But along the way is all who achieve that is ultimately the first thing they become is well-rounded. That they understand how to move in this space. Even if they just intuitively do it, they understand how to move in this space. But it's elementally important that they get a well-roundedness to it, and the commitment is lifelong, and that they're stepping more and more into that space and looking at the things that they like, keep doing them. Look at the things you don't like, figure them out. Look at the things you're not good at, figure them out. And then always be looking for the thing that you don't understand, but it's on the cusp of your consciousness. You just got to be open to finding it. Okay. So that's 3 seconds left. That's my conversation over tonight. A lot to think about. That was a wonderful conversation. You'll understand remember about the mountain. You can think every time I have these conversations, I say a lot, and I'm getting that feedback. You're saying a lot, Roy. Is is I'm putting it out. I'll say a lot all the time, but what will slow me down, what will break it down is your questions. If you fire in a question, I'll stop, I'll read your question, I'll answer it, and we'll break things down. So the more you get your head around what I'm saying, the more you get your head around where we're going with all this, is when you start to have your questions, just throw them out. And the smaller the question, the better, believe it or not. So if you think, oh no, I couldn't ask that question, you can. If you ask me a big question, I'm going to break it down into 3 so we can get a better understanding of it. So the smaller the question, the better. So don't think you go, oh no, that's a silly question, or that's a stupid question, or that's no. They're the questions that we want to have, and that we're looking for. Well, what's the answer that makes the biggest difference? So what's the smallest question we can ask that gives us the best result, the biggest response? That's what we're looking for, and we'll have a bit of crack while we're doing it. And outside of that, I know I'm talking over, and you're still here, so I really appreciate it. Thank you, and I'll see you on Monday.